And we're back at it again with another live one for all you Bi-Conics wrestling nerds out there. And welcome to another fantastical episode of the Bi-Conics Wrestling Podcast. God, I'm already regretting this. We have so many people here. It's going to be freaking chaotic. It's going to be
Mikey, you hired all of us.
Yes.
You did this. You brought all these good people together, Mikey.
This is your fault, Mikey. This is your fault.
Yes, it is.
Enjoy the chaos of your creation.
Listen, in the moment, I'm going to enjoy the chaos, and then future Mikey is going to bash his head against the table because he's got to edit all
fire
this.
all of us. Just fire all of
I'll
us.
fire you guys for 2 hours, and then the onset of loneliness will creep in and be like, I need y'all to come back. There we go. But as I mentioned before, this is the 2023 Year in Review episode, where we're going to review 2023 in professional wrestling. We're going to talk about the highs, the lows, all the in-betweens, and it's just going to be an emotional whiplash the entire time. It's going to be a great time. We're off to a great start. Of course, I am your main squeeze, El Jefe himself, Mikey. Tonight, I am joined by JVL, Jesse, Andrew, Adolfo, the Professor John, and of course, El Luchador Fakeador himself, Minnie.
It's El Oxymorano. Get it right.
This is going to be great. Before we jump into everything proper, let me establish the rules for my co-hosts and for everybody else. Unfortunately, we are missing 2 members of our lovely 9-folk group. Don't worry, though. I'm working with them to get their picks at a future date. They're still going to be a part of this. It'll just come later. It's going to be great. But here are the ground rules for tonight. We are going to be going through a variety of categories, and each of us has gone through the creme of our wrestling list to figure out what our best and our worst for a bunch of different categories were. We're going to go in order. We're going to go through each category. Every person is going to state what their choice was for that particular category, and they have about a minute or two to explain why they chose it. Some of these categories are going to go through faster than others because some people didn't do their homework or came onto the podcast like way late in the game. So, but it's going to be great. I am going to make up for it because I am going to be carrying everybody through this as I normally do. I'm just kidding.
Are we going to give you stuff to carry, or should we hold our own? Just tell me now.
I feel like being like JVL and Jesse over here carrying mics. I'm gonna hold my mic over here, and so it looks like I know what I'm doing.
You look like Excalibur.
Can you carry emotional baggage?
Absolutely, if you need me to.
Oh no, Mikey said he's going to carry us, so I'm going to give him the emotional baggage I've been dealing with.
Minnie looks like Mom, I want to listen to Excalibur. We have Excalibur at home, dear.
Oh no!
Wish.
Oh, yeah, wish value Excalibur is just a rusty sword.
Oh Lord!
Dollar General Swordman.
Oh boy, this is gonna be interesting.
Sorry, Mikey, I'm not happy. Mikey, go! Mikey, go!
Nah, this is gonna be a fun one. This is definitely gonna be fun.
I can't see anything in this motherfucker, so let's do this.
Demonetized! We did it under 3 minutes.
It's been over a minute. We're good.
Please tell me you heard Jesse, though. Please tell me what he just said.
No, I don't think I did.
He's the lucha don't.
Is he going?
All right, Mikey, let's get us back on track, huh?
There you go. Go, Mikey, go.
My mic.
Oh my gosh. All right, here we go. So we're going to begin with the easiest category, I think. No, not really, because none of these are going to be easy because I had a mental breakdown trying to figure out what my picks were going to be. But we're going to start off with our top male superstar of the year. I gave my co-host the option. This could be a singles wrestler or this could be a tag team if they chose to pick a tag team for the year. Obviously, as the category states, this is the male wrestler that we each felt that was the best this year in terms of what we enjoyed, what they brought to the table, all that good stuff. By the power invested in me, I have figured out the order of what we're going to do. And by the end of this, everyone's probably not going to come back because I'm making everybody go before me. So we're going to start this off. JVL, you're going to be starting off this round. So, yes. Sir,
wow.
So why don't you tell us who is your male superstar of 2023?
JVL.
It's nice to have the 14th state in the union recognized first. It's always great to be here in Vermont.
We're going by age, okay? Take it easy.
Either way. It's okay. Perfectly okay.
He's fine. He's fine. Ignore the knife he's pulling out from the back behind him.
Who's talking? I can't hear you. I'm very old. So basically, Mikey, as you had said, it was a tag team and it was a singles wrestle. You could do any of those. I was very much balancing two different ones in my hands and seeing which one weighed more. Did I enjoy the feel of it? Which one I really wanted to keep around more? And unfortunately, the tag team had to go to the wayside, and I can talk about it later in almost at that point. But mine was Dalton Castle this year. Dalton Castle has had, without having a championship, one of the most consistently entertaining and dynamic runs in the entirety of all the wrestling we watch. And yes, I'm being an ROH stand for it, but he has gone from carrying the company being very much that happy babyface who was very campy, everything else, to fully losing his crap in the last couple of months because he has been losing repeatedly and not getting the titles back and watching them be held up on AEW. So for me, this year, the power of the peacock is what I will follow.
Love it. We're off to a great start. Jesse, now it is your turn. Who is your male superstar of the year?
So for me, it's pretty simple. Let me talk to you. It's LA Knight, without a doubt. You have somebody go from borderline obscurity in the beginning of this year, came through the Bray Wyatt feud that he had a little unscathed, surprisingly, even though he got, people want to say buried in that. But look what he was able to do to go from that. And a few months later, he's in a championship match. Yeah, we knew they weren't going to pull the trigger, but it shows that they've got the belief that he can do this. He's become borderline a household name. Even Nash is talking crap about him in his podcast, and no publicity is bad publicity at that point. So for me, clearly LA Knight, he doesn't need a title. He didn't need the Money in the Bank. He won the Slim Jim Battle Royal, so I don't know if he gets a bunch of Slim Jims, but still, that car he drives is pretty damn cool looking. But it's LA Knight clearly for me. He just made something out of nothing, and he's so captivating to watch.
Lawrence of Arabian Night.
Excellent.
Wow. Name's the kid LA.
Listen, as an educator, you would be surprised at the amount of different names that I have to look through my roster every single year. It never.
I'm in HR. The applications I have to look through, I would not be surprised.
Remind me someday to tell you the story of Arangelo and Yolangelo, but that's for another podcast. I'm not kidding. Anyway, go.
Went to school with a Ladasha, and the dash was actually in the name. It was written phonetically.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, boy.
Damn.
That's crazy. Speaking of craziness, our most crazy member, I'm just kidding, Andrew, it is your turn, bud. Who is your 2023 male superstar of the year?
For me, I went for Will Ospreay. I think he had such a great year, especially he's at the peak of his career and basically had a year of being able to call whatever matches he wanted to be able to have. Still have some big matches in the company he was wrapping up for. The fact that he got to have some great matches in Impact, the company that was like his childhood dream to be a part of. He got to do that. I got to wrestle at home. I got to wrestle in the States. I got to wrestle all over. And then with the announcement of him signing to AEW, I think that was probably the smartest way to go, since we know he's going to be able to wrestle for them, but still be able to wrestle at some of the other companies that he'll likely want to wrestle for. Especially being the biggest free agent talked about, that was being talked about at a time when everyone was talking about where CM Punk was going to go. People were also talking about Will Ospreay, and I think the fact that he was able to stay up in those kind of conversations, it just says how big his year was, and I think he's going to have even bigger years after this.
Yeah, so I'm going to jump the line a little bit too, because Will Ospreay is my choice for 2023 for the same reasons as Andrew had stated. For me personally, Will has had some of my favorite matches this year across pretty much every single promotion minus WWE, because the kid's been everywhere. He had a baller match at Wrestle Kingdom earlier this year. I thought he killed Kenny Omega at Forbidden Door. And he and Speedball Mike Bailey had a baller match at Bound for Glory. He and Eddie Edwards had a great match at Turning Point. And then I enjoyed his match against Josh Alexander on a random taping for Impact too. This kid is everywhere. But I think what kind of pushed it over the edge for me of why I picked a Will Ospreay is because every single time I've seen him in interviews this year, he really loves professional wrestling and he cares about the business and he loves what he does. And for him to have such a cocky attitude as his in-character persona, but then to be one of the humblest people I have ever seen, in the entirety of wrestling this year is a beautiful thing. Will Ospreay is my choice for my male superstar of the year for 2023. And I'm going to pass the baton over to Adolfo, who is your male superstar of the year.
All right. I actually did do both my male superstar of the year and my male tag team superstars of the year. For me, my male superstar of the year is Seth freaking Rollins. And the reason being is he has such a presence, right? If you can sit there and you can make a Coliseum's audience sing your song for like minutes after you arrive, that's incredible. He does great work. And I love his fashion sense. I love his fashion sense. My top male tag team of the year is the Acclaimed, because everybody loves the Acclaimed. I think that these guys, every match that they've been in, they've shown great talent. I feel with Daddy Ass, they, as a trios, they're entertaining, they're engaging, and every time they walk out into that out into the Coliseum, everyone just explodes, and out of nowhere, all these like cardboard scissors and signs go up. Oh, we love the Acclaim. It's awesome. So that for me is my tag team of the year. So now we're gonna toss it over to Le Professor.
Hi. I'm trying not to cheat and be like, here's my 1A, my 1B, my 1C. I'm trying not to do that, but I was able to get this down to top 3 because I am the Libra. I'm not going to ramble on all of them. I have Dominic Mysterio in my top 3 because I thought Dominic Mysterio showed so much growth, just getting better in the ring presence, commanding the crowd, still has heat from things that happened in 2022 and has been able to carry that over, is doing a great run with that belt. We talked about Will Ospreay was also on my list. I love watching Will. I didn't know a lot about Will Ospreay before this year. And what Will Ospreay was, I was seeing highlights, but watching him in the ring, watching him work the crowd and all that other stuff is a blast. My number 1's LA Knight for all the reasons that have already been said. To come from out of nowhere to quite literally be in the salt mines of the industry where nobody likes you. You're just borderline a jobber, and to just create his own path and to see that sort of blossom this year has been amazing. So a few folks have said this, and Mick Foley brought this up on his podcast too, when they were saying LA Knight is just doing the same shtick as The Rock and Stone Cold, to which Mick Foley said, but yeah, but if you're going to pick two and you're going to do it, it's going to be those two. And it doesn't come off as artificial or disingenuous to me. He's in the ring and he's owning it. And as a performer, it's beautiful to watch. I might be biased because I'm 40 myself and I just want some kind of victory in my life. But outside of that, I'm having a blast watching him. And every time I knew he was on or it was a possibility, I found a way to watch after the fact.
Excellent. Oh, sorry. Let's change masks. Mine is... So I had two. Top 3, LA Knight was in the top 3. Everybody else said it, so I wanted to change it up a little bit. I also had Dominic Mysterio, just for say what you want about his in-ring ability. He's still learning, he's still growing, he's still young, but he has some of the best to help him work with Finn Balor and Damian Priest to kind of help him get there. But what he's done as a heel has been fantastic. There's really not very many other people that can go out there and you can't hear what he's saying because he booms so damn loud. The next one I have might be a little bit surpriser. I have Solo Sikoa. For what he's been doing he's been like the one good thing about the bloodline, this extended bloodline thing that's been going on, has been Solo Sikoa. He came in, he got one over on John Cena, which, as we know, John Cena until recently has not been very keen in putting people over. Talking to RP Bray Wyatt, he got buried by John Cena a long time ago, if you guys remember that. But yeah, he's just been poised to take off and become a superstar within WWE, and he's had a big year already. But I think his next year is going to be even bigger for him. He has had no title this year, I don't believe. So I'm just hoping he goes off and just takes off into the stratosphere. But yeah, I think my number 1 this year is Solo Sikoa.
I love it. I love it. I love it. It's great. All righty. So now we're going to move to the other side of the spectrum. And now we're going to go through our probably one of my favorite categories always is bet a favorite or top female wrestler of the year. I feel like a lot of us are going to have some crossovers because we got a plethora of the shows covered here right now. So, JVL, we're back at the top of the order. So, we're going to start with you. Who is your top female wrestler of 2023?
I'm pretty sure anyone on this podcast, anyone who's watched our product for the last year and a half, knows who I'm going to pick here. I'm a stan again for ROH. Athena has carried an entire brand on her back. She has been the definition and the measuring stick of what a women's champion can be, more than NJPW, more than AEW, more than anything else. And she has done it both as a straight up heel and as turning it just slightly enough that there is depth to what she does to affect newer wrestlers and putting other wrestlers over. You give me every one of her proving ground matches, and they're better than some of the matches I see on pay-per-view in some of these companies, because she actually makes these people look like they have a chance. Give me Athena any day of the week. I'm going to miss her when she leaves ROH and goes up to another roster, but she is amazing.
Mikey, on to me now?
Yep.
All right.
No, it's back to me.
Oh, you fucked off. My female wrestler of the year was also Athena for a variety of reasons. I don't want to echo those, so I'm going to go with my second. And this is purely based on growth, not only of character, but in-ring potential and prowess. That would be Julia Hart. I think she has grown so much from January to now, to the point where they put the TBS title on her. And it's not they put it on her. She has earned it with how hard she's been working.
I'd love to see it. All right, Andrew, we're up to you now. So, top female wrestler of 2023. I think I have an idea. You are muted.
Mine was Athena too. Yeah, it was up between Athena and Trinity for me, and I think the difference was, like JVL said, Athena was the face and the back of a company for most of this year. I've said it before in our Ring of Honor reviews that Athena is the ROH world champion, men's, women's, whatever. She is the champion of Ring of Honor. The feud or the build of character through her, through all of the people that they've had to challenge her with, has just gotten better all year. And what we got most recently in the payoff for things was just phenomenal. She's wrestled, or at least been on, every single episode of Ring of Honor, and she's done a phenomenal job being that main person of a show. But yeah, she's my go-to. Trinity is just right behind her because I think she's done a lot for that division, the Knockouts division, over at Impact as well.
Awesome. Adolfo, we move on to you for your female wrestler of 2023.
Who's my mommy? Rhea Ripley. Yo, she's just dominates. And I think that we can all agree that she is the leader of the Judgment Day. And to keep all those yahoos in line, and also just, again, she walks out and she gets so much pop. And even being the heelish heel of a heel that she is, people still love her. I would have her babies.
That is a very fair point.
Yeah. It's me. Again, I had my top three, like I was saying before. Rhea Ripley is in my top three. I have Becky Lynch in there as well, because Becky Lynch has been working super hard, putting folks over, went down to NXT, was doing work over in there, had some great matches early in the year as well. I'm going to say this because someone who's not here with us, who normally is, convinced me of it the last two times I've been on with him. I'm going to say Charlotte Flair.
Turning off my camera.
Just because I hated Charlotte Flair all year. For the first 6-7 months of it, I'm like, you're beating Charlotte Flair down my throat. You keep showing me Charlotte Flair. I roll my eyes when I see her walk out, this and this, and I just can't stand it. Why are you here? Why are you here? You're always here. You're always putting in the work. She's always doing great matches, even though there's a few clunkers here and there. Yeah, that. But what she held up, the work that she did do, the sort of random triple tag teams and things that she was in, even though it felt shoehorned at times for me, I warmed up to Charlotte Flair this year. And a part of me was like, oh my God, when I think back on every match or every moment or everything, she's somewhere in that mix. I could talk about Io Sky as well. I could say Shotzi again and just say what I said last year all over again. But it leaves a taste in my mouth for sure. But I'm going to say Charlotte Flair.
Ooh, we're getting spicy already. I love it. Minnie, who is your top female of the year?
My number one was also Miss Mommy Rhea Ripley, but I'll go to my number two so we don't have a lot of duplicates here. Mercedes Moné, formerly known as Sasha Banks. She left WWE and took off in New Japan Pro Wrestling. She did get hurt, but she was their former women's champion. She did a lot this year. Is doing a huge splash out in the indie scene, showing another former WWE person that doesn't need to be in WWE to show that you can be incredibly successful on the indie scene in Japan and even some matches down if she does AEW and everything else. But yeah, I'm gonna say Mercedes.
I love it. All right, so I'm actually I'm of the mindset of Minnie here. Athena was my number one, but Trinity was my number two. But I'm actually going to talk about my number three because it was harder for me to pick my top female of the year. It was easier to pick my top male, but which is a testament to how much work the women's divisions across all of the brands have put in this year. And women's wrestling basically was my favorite thing to watch in 2023. Will's not here, but if anybody watches the product, me and him cover NXT. So my women's wrestler of the year is going to come from NXT, and my pick is Lyra Valkyria. Listen, Lyra has been on my radar since the days of NXT UK. And then when she came over to the United States, she had really fun matches. Her versus Roxanne was one of my favorite standouts towards the beginning half of the year. And then unexpectedly, she and Tiffany Stratton had probably one of my favorite NXT women's matches up until that point at their Battleground pay-per-view, in which, though Lyra lost, she and Tiffany put on a really good match. And then when she won that title from Becky, that match between her and Becky was probably one of my favorite recent NXT women's matches from the last 2 months or so. And I think she just has something, and she has the star quality and she has the star power. And I'm happy to see where her title reign leads her into 2024. But man, there's something special about Lyra, and I love seeing Shawn Michaels see something in her that I've saw since NXT UK, and now she's getting the push. And man, when you have Becky Lynch being your number one supporter and putting you over the way that she did in that title match where Lyra beat her clean, no shenanigans, no nothing, it was beautiful to watch. So Lyra Valkyria is going to be my women's wrestler of 2023. All right. So now that we've covered the actual performers themselves, now we get into the harder bit because we're going to have to go through and pick our top men's match of 2023. Again, the same parameters. It could have been a singles match. It could have been a tag team match. And I forgot to tell my co-host, but it can also be if they chose a multi-person match, then it could have been like that. But I feel that most of the best matches were either singles or tag team matches because then the multi-mans get a little bit iffy. Unless you're Ring of Honor, because they're the only ones that have done it right this year, in my opinion. All right, JVL, here we go. Men's match of 2023.
We're calling an audible right now. I'm going to have Jesse give this one because Jesse actually has my number one, but I actually have a second one that I can go into afterwards. I feel he needs to say this one first.
All right, Jesse,
I don't have a backup. I have one number one match that unfortunately, out of the whole group here, John and I were the only ones who were able to see it. When we went up to Montreal for the Elimination Chamber, the SmackDown beforehand, there was a dark match after SmackDown. It was a street fight between LA Knight and Bray Wyatt, one of Bray Wyatt's absolute last matches. And just for that point, and because of what he means to me, that's my match of the year. I've got a small video for two parts of it where he gives LA Knight and Uranagi through the table and then picks him up for the Sister Abigail for the win. I couldn't have been happier. I am reasonably sure I had cried at that point. And that's it. That's my match of the year.
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome.
Can verify there was tears. Can verify you did not think you were going to get to see him because he wasn't on the card or anything else. It was a huge night for both of us. So yeah, that also is my top of the top for nostalgia, for feelings reasons. For my drawing me in as well, my number two this year as a more recent one, it's the Swerve Strickland Hangman Page Texas Death Match. For all of the disgusting parts of it, for everything else, even with Hangman having two death matches in the same year, this was the better death match he had. And you can't take anything away from it. Both performers put it all on the line, and the inventiveness of the spots versus the other one we saw is really what drew me into this one.
Man, I was so close to picking that Texas Death Match too as my top, but there were two matches that eked it out a little bit. All right, Andrew.
All right. I had a top one, but there were some honorable mentions for me in this one. Ospreay versus
Ring of honorable mentions?
Yes, Ring of Honorable Mentions. Actually, I don't think any of them are Ring of Honor, oddly enough. Ospreay versus Bailey
Heck, Andrew.
was my number. I actually went back and watched all three of Ospreay's matches in Impact, and because I wasn't sure if it would still be my favorite. And I went back and I watched it, and yeah, it was my match of the year. It was such an incredible match. I remember, especially the first time I saw it, it was just like I was standing up through most of it. The other ones that I thought that were really good, I also really enjoyed the Texas Death Match and also the what was it, the strap match at All Out between Ricky Starks and Bryan Danielson, especially for knowing that he was coming back early from a broken arm and they were doing that style of a match to help compensate for that. And what they were able to do in that match was it was crazy, but it was so good. And just hats off to especially Bryan Danielson in that. But yeah,
That match was, I thought the Texas Death Match was a lot. That strap match was inadvertently a lot because Danielson wasn't supposed to get busted open like he did, and then it just went from there. That was the fun. And I think the imagery of Ricky Starks being choked out by the strap also was burnt into my retinas. I'm like, I can't unsee it. I still feel that Ricky should have won. That's neither here nor there.
Even to the build to that match, Bryan Danielson fucking made me cry when he's like, the last person I was in a strap match with, I love, referring to the Fiend who had just recently passed away. And imagine what I do to somebody who I don't even like. I was like, oh
Yeah.
That match was fun. I wished Ricky won, but that was a thing of beauty. All right, Adolfo, we are on to you. Men's match of the year.
Okay, as always, I had to do things my way. So I have the singles match and a tag team match of the year. So my singles match of the year was Kenny Omega, Will Ospreay from Forbidden Door. That match was so riveting. It was just it made me hold my breath the entire match. And then and again, I think Mikey had said it earlier at the end when we thought Kenny Omega died, but it was just a great match. Just two technical wrestlers that really know their craft and just a great story. My tag team match of the year, FTR versus Club. That match was just like, oh man, wow. It was just so good. It was just so good. Think what you want to think about FTR, but they know their craft and they know what they're doing. And Bullet Club, Jay White and Juice Robinson, they're just all great actors. And that match just so good. So good. So there we go.
And you're not even a fan of Kenny Omega to begin with. It's just having him as your best match of the year. Like,
yeah. And my wife, even more not a fan.
Right?
So, for me to say that.
Oh my goodness. It was, man, that match between FTR and Bullet Club Globe was one of the few examples this year. See, when tag team wrestling is done right, like it's actually good, you guys. Fuck Vince McMahon saying tag team wrestling's not good.
It's good, you guys.
Yeah.
It's good. Professor,
this one was the matches categories we have were super friggin' hard to me, and I tried to go back and check in on all of these as we went. I could do Ospreay, Omega, the whole trio of those matches. Forbidden Door is in my top 1, 2 for all the matches that I have written down here. Too many to talk about. Honorable mention, I got to do this. Honorable mention for the San Juan Street fight with Bad Bunny and Damian Priest, because it had no business being that good, and they brought it. They messed each other up. Damian Priest took care of Bad Bunny. There was some violence in there that was just exciting. I really appreciated that, and the fact that it's been the images are still in the brain. This match meant a lot to me because maybe it was the time of year, maybe it was just what led up after it. The first MJF Adam Cole from Dynamite 193, that first Iron Man draw match that they took to the end. Storytelling in that was amazing. It was Adam Cole being peak Adam Cole, I felt. And MJF, we could talk about at length. Underrated in some ways, overrated in other ways. Adam Cole and him worked together beautifully. The build up to that match, the amazing sitcom, which I talked about at length, that came after that for weeks after that. How that kicked off, and that's textbook how to start this and do this well. So I really enjoyed that match. That's one that stands out, and it's not even a pay-per-view. And I have a whole bunch of other ones here that I want to talk about, but I can't. We don't have time. I love that Steel City Street fight. I love watching Sammy and Kevin Owens go full hockey team, and Kevin Owens doing a swanton on the concrete, and all doing a real Terry Funk tribute, which we'll talk about that later. Actually doing the things. But that AEW Dynamite, that Adam Cole one, it still sticks out in my brain, even all this time later.
So many good matches this year. Minnie, what do you got for best men's match?
This one was tough. I have a couple, but like honorable mentions, just because these are some of the few first matches I ever got to see live. Johnny Gargano versus Grayson Waller at Stand and Deliver. They're on a sanctioned match. If you guys are able to see that live, I got a holy shit chant to go off in the arena. That was awesome. Another one was watching my hero Rey Mysterio wrestle for the first time at WrestleMania. That was awesome. But my top actual matches, but like I was gonna do Kenny versus Will, but people already talked about that, so I don't get to talk about that, which is dope. Even though he broke his arm, but Bryan Danielson versus Kata at Forbidden Door, that one was definitely up there. But I think my number one was Ilya Dragunov versus Carmelo Hayes for the NXT Championship. That match was a monster. Ilya I thought about making him my male superstar, but all of his matches I've seen were amazing. This one was probably the best one that I got to see watching it live on NXT. So I'm going to have to go with Ilya versus Carmelo Hayes and get the NXT love out there. Mikey's going to appreciate that.
What? This was the one where we at Stand and Deliver, right? Or
no,
Great American Bash, right?
Yeah.
Okay, Great American Bash.
It was Carmelo versus
the Great American Bash.
Yeah.
Oh man. So a lot of you mentioned a lot of my tops. So my number one was also Will versus Speedball Mike Bailey at Bound for Glory. Like that match was just 17 minutes of pure, unadulterated wrestling. And then the fact that we watched it on pay-per-view and then people got to see it for free on television the following week too, in all of its entirety was amazing. So I'm going to go with the other ones. The other one that was in my top three is what Minnie mentioned. Great American Bash NXT for Ilya versus Carmelo is probably my favorite of the three matches they had in their trilogy. I didn't tell the rest of my crew this, but you can also pick the multi-man, which leads me to the one that I actually really enjoyed. And this also comes from NXT Stand and Deliver, which me and Minnie were at live. And this is the Fatal 5-Way for the NXT North American Championship match. Because, oh my God,
banger.
That was just 20 minutes of unadulterated, like nonstop, everything that I want in a multi-man. And the 5 individuals that you threw into that match was just amazing. You had Wesley, Axiom, JD McDonough, Ilya Dragunov. Oh my God. It was such a beautiful match. It was really hard. And I felt bad for the women who had to follow up with that for the tag team match after that one. For the tag
that match was still good though too.
I'm gonna be honest.
That entire card was good.
Oh, that entire card was amazing.
It's crazy to say that one of my first live wrestling events was that and then WrestleMania.
Right.
Like it's my first 2 live events, and thank you for Mikey for being able to take me to those.
I'm just happy that you're like, listen, I have an extra ticket. If you can fly yourself down here, it's yours, and like already booked on my way. It was the thing. And then honestly, this was the pay-per-view debut for Dragon Lee too. And to see where he has gone, from there into now, I'm like, this dude is already on main roster. Like, jeez Louise. But yeah, that Fatal 5-Way lives rent-free in my head. And it's a perfect example as to how you do multi-man Fatal 5-Way matches correctly. It's just go. Axiom was my MVP that match along with Dragon Lee, but Wesley is my dude, man. He's my dude. And to see where he started earlier this year with being stripped of the tag team championships because of allegations from his tag team partner who got let go from the company and then was getting squashed to everybody, to winning that NXT North American Championship at Halloween Havoc last year and having one of the best NXT North American title reigns this year is just amazing. But yeah, that Fatal 5-Way at Stand and Deliver is my men's match of the year outside of the ones everyone else has mentioned. So I'm cheating because I'm going first for my women's match because I have a feeling that a majority of people are going to talk about this. I'm just kidding. I have my list. It is fine. but I have a sneaky feeling of where the majority of people are going to go with this. But JBL, we're going to start with you. Women's match of 2023.
Mikey, I'm going to cede my time to you because I'm pretty sure we have the same match that we're picking for this one.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mikey. Do it.
I'm going to steal the thunder from everyone, and I apologize in advance, but my women's match is no contest. Athena versus Willow Nightingale for the Ring of Honor Women's World Championship at Death Before Dishonor. That was
mine.
That is the best match. The fact that these women got 35 minutes, because I was doing my research to see what was the timestamp of this. This match was given 35 minutes. And if I'm correct, this is the longest women's match that I have watched this year. Like, for a singles match. And to me, this match was the perfect example of why women's wrestling is better than the men's wrestling. Like I loved women's wrestling going into 2023, but I would say that the women did it so much better this year than the men did for me. And this match is the prime example of what happens when you take two incredible talents and you just let them go. The fact that throughout this match that Willow and Athena had to dig deep into their repertoire of moves and to pull out finishers and things that they normally don't do. Athena had to dig in deep because Willow was not going down without a fight. And Willow kept getting more aggressive and aggressive as the match went on. Listen, I was spent by the end of this match, and Athena barely pulled out the victory here. But man, this is my match of the year. And then also, Athena's also in my runner-up. Her versus Kiera Hogan in the Chicago Street Fight is also one of my favorite matches of the year. But yeah, Athena versus Willow Nightingale, Death Before Dishonor 2023 is my women's match of the year.
I have nothing to add to that. I'm right there with you. So that was my time. We're sending it over to Jesse to get his.
All right, for me, I was between two multiplayer matches. For me, the best women's one was the Women's Elimination Chamber this year. Mm-hmm. I thought it was very fast paced. Everyone was mimicking some of the spots they had. Liv Morgan poking her head through it and getting choked by Natalya on the actual chamber itself, and then coming back and hitting that meteor off the top of the pod. Just impeccable moments. Incredible to see, especially seeing it live. So for me, it's that chamber match is going to live in my memory forever.
And the Asuka win was insane.
Yes, the Asuka win was insane. And then Liv, I'm a huge Liv Morgan fan, so to see her not eat a pin, but pass out from being in the sharpshooter and I forget the other lock.
Yes.
The Asuka at the same time, like holy shit. Yeah, that was it for me.
I love it. Andrew, we move on to you.
I wanted to go a little out on a limb on my women's matches here. So I actually picked some matches that I didn't think were going to be ones that were on other people's radar. So my match, my favorite match of the year was an Athena match, but it was from an episode of Ring of Honor on November 2nd when she faced Mercedes Martinez.
Oh God, that match ruled.
That could have been, I was expecting that was going to be the women's championship match they were going to build to for Final Battle. And so when they had this match here, I wasn't quite sure about it, but it was basically like getting to watch a pay-per-view match on weekly television, on top of which the way that match played into the greater ongoing storyline with Athena and Billy Starks was so great. The way that it set up what's happened and everything that's been going on. It was such a good match. I went back and watched it again, and it was just such good showing from both of them, especially considering it was just on Ring of Honor, the weekly show. A runner-up for me was from Turning Point. It was Danny Luna versus Jordan Grace.
Those girls went at it.
Yeah, we get so many beefy men matches, and to get a beefy women's match that like seeing both of these two hit some of the craziest moves was just so awesome. And to just have these two powerhouses go at it. And it was great to see Jordan Grace go in there and be able to give some time to a newer wrestler, but also get to see more of what Danny Luna can do. It was awesome. So yeah, that was definitely my runner-up for this year.
I gotta say, I love that everyone's pulling from all the different promotions because this women's list was really hard to pick from for me personally because there were so many good women's matches across the board. But Adolfo, we come to you next. Your women's match of the year. What you got?
So I'm gonna change gears here, and this match is a personal lifetime favorite match, and it's Zelina Vega against Rhea Ripley at Backlash in Puerto Rico. And just starting off when Zelina Vega came out, just looking like a Reina Boricua, it just fantastic. She was wearing the flag, and my peoples were there, and they cheered, and Rhea Ripley, who is being a heel, but is letting Zelina just get that moment because it was just so important. I'm so happy that I saw that moment. And the match itself was great. What could have been a squash match for the night wasn't. And for Rhea, I felt it added to her legacy. And for Zelina, I feel like that was the true start of her rise to fame that she's at now. But that match just,
You can't make me cry on this podcast, though. Oh my goodness. All right, Professor, what do you got?
I'm not going to talk about that one because Adolfo did it so much better. I'm going to go to NXT Great American Bash, Perez and Davenport.
Hell yes.
That Weapons Wild match was one of the better Street Fight Weapons matches of the year to me. And I know AEW does Better Blood, and I know there's better weapons things and blah. We could talk about that. Those women were crushing each other. Perez gets that cowbell out from underneath, destroys Davenport's face, then goes for a leather strap, hits her really hard, like Cody Rhodes leaving marks hard. It was violent. Roxanne's sister is there crying, selling it right there with the mom as Blair's going after her. I think it took him a full, 10 minutes to get into the ring, and then all of a sudden it was over. Come on. That was one that I wish went longer, but for obvious reasons they could not. I did the review for Great American Bash, and at that review, I told Mikey, I got to start watching NXT. And then I checked in 2 or 3 times since then. So it's just been, but that match, I went back and watched it. Y'all are right. I need to go watch Willow and Athena. I have not, so I have failed you for this year. There are other matches I got to check out, and you're absolutely right. But that one deserves a shout. And of course, they got Selena and Ripley, but yeah.
This is the point of this, Professor, is to have everyone see matches they may have not seen and go and check them out. Like, we're giving a lot of stuff. Also, can I just interject here quickly? This has been the year of moms at ringside for a lot of different matches being involved in that. So I think 2023 was brought to us by moms.
Yeah, it started with dives, and then it was surprise roll-ups, and then
now it's moms.
Like family, like nieces and nephews and sisters like being traumatized, because NXT also had another one where Eddie Thorpe's little niece got traumatized during his strap match with Dijak.
Siblings and families and spouses and partners ringside all over the place. Chanclas every now and then. Shout out. It might be recency bias too. I did not hate that women's War Games match from Survivor Series. I thought that was
loved it. What are you talking about?
That was my
the
other
best
one.
match
If
of
it
the
wasn't
night.
Elimination Chamber, it's gonna be that one.
The fact that we had flying trash can Io Sky is still one of the coolest things ever.
Oscar the Grouch.
Oscar the Grouch. It's the confidence she had to do that.
Love it.
Somewhere Duke the Dumpster Drozy is smiling.
Oh my gosh. Listen, Io is the only woman. She's been in every single women's War Game match since they brought it back for this iteration of WWE. And I'm like, yes, that is absolutely correct. That is the right choice. All right, Minnie, women's wrestling. The rest of us pressured you into watching women's wrestling this year because sometimes it's better than the men's is. So you got to experience a lot of good women's matches when we spent our time together in LA, and as well as the rest of the year. So who do you got for your best women's match of the year?
Rhea Ripley, Charlotte Flair at WrestleMania night 1.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that match was an absolute banger, a classic, really good. It showed how good they both were. My number 2 was the War Games match, because flying Oscar the Grouch was one of the best spots. And watching her bring up stuff with the chain, watching Dakota Kai poke people with the kendo stick underneath the cage, all really good. But my number 1 is going to go to Rhea and Charlotte at WrestleMania. That match was just incredible. It was really good. Hearing everybody cheer for Mommy, even though she was the heel and Charlotte was supposed to be the face, and that big ass SoFi is so big. Hearing that in person, it was incredible.
That was the free nose job match, right?
Yes. I still
That's
have the
part of that
belief.
match.
I'm still of the belief that only because we were in the midst of Bloodline storyline, Rhea and Charlotte should have main evented. They should have switched that tag team championship
100%.
match. That would have been the better
100%.
way
Tag
to
team match
end
didn't
it.
need to be there.
You still could have had it, but that should have been the semi-main event and let Rhea and Charlotte main event because no women's match main evented a night of WrestleMania this year, and that was a travesty.
And we're working that way again for this year's WrestleMania.
We listen, if Rhea versus Becky is not main eventing tonight, we're gonna fight. That's the rumor.
You smell that? Anybody else smell that? Why we didn't get the women's main event WrestleMania night too? Smells like cheap cologne and hush money. I wonder if thinks that's why.
Damn. Also, interjecting really quickly, this year was a great year for women's weapons wild street fight matches because I was just like, these women are killing it. One of my honorable mentions, even though not a lot of people will talk about it, because that weapons wild between Roxanne and Blair at Great American Bash was good too.
Yeah.
But I also really enjoyed Tiffany versus Becky Lynch at No Mercy in their street fight. Becky Lynch whipping Tiffany.
Bump.
The Barbie bump was hilarious. Just Tiffany proved herself in that match for me. And even though she lost, I was like, oh, this girl's going to be fine. She don't like, I wanted her to have that title a little bit longer, but she's going to be fine. And she's poised to potentially be number one contender again because she qualified for the big old match at Deadline to see who gets that number one contendership. Alrighty. So now we're going to get. Do I want to switch it up a little bit? No,
So-
we're gonna keep going in
I have
order.
a question though, but I know we got to keep moving, and I don't want to take up too much time. How come we don't have worst matches on here?
We're getting into those right now.
We are.
We got worst. We have best and worst feud. We have best and worst pay-per-view. We don't have worst match.
I think there were two sets of questions sent out because I didn't get those questions either, the worst matches or best
No.
matches. So I'm just rolling with it.
Yep. We're going to figure it out.
Oh,
You know what?
I have answers. I
Here-
just
okay,
didn't
so
know.
Then let's
let's
just
do-
roll with it, Mikey.
Let's do this. We'll finish up with the good. So we'll do best feud of the year, and then we're gonna add in worst match and then worst feud
Perfect.
as two concurrent
God.
categories.
All right.
Now I got to come up with 2 new matches.
You
The
sound like WWE
Bi-Conics.
creative.
We're the Bi-Conics. We're
That's all right.
unprofessionally
It's all right.
professional. Yeah, we're like WWE. We changed the script last minute, but we are gonna go in order. So
No refunds.
no refunds. Speaking of no refunds, these next few matches we're going to talk about are the best feuds of 2023. So we don't need a refund because we personally enjoyed the feud. Now, feud tends to have different meanings for a bunch of other people. So all of us came into this with some different perspectives. JVL, we're going to go with you first. 2023, we saw a lot of people fight each other,
did.
but what was your favorite feud this year? And this can be for men or women. I didn't specify it had to be male or female.
And I'm glad you didn't. So up until about a couple weeks ago, I would have had my answer for the year. And it was the same thing Professor brought up in some of the things. It was the MJF Adam Cole feud because the vignettes worked. The selling had been good, even around the fact that MJF not being as good on the mic as some of the people he was up against before it became the whole MJF show. Everyone's involved with me. Their buddy cop stuff was amazing. And I loved the build and then the fight it all in. Last week that changed, and it had to change for me because I was reminded that one of my favorite storylines / feuds has been going on all year, over 365 days. The Minion in Training storyline that Athena is running with Billy Starks, which has now come to a head at Final Battle. And this has been gripping. I have never not wanted to watch a segment with it. I have always been rooting for both sides of it. Lexi Nair is the perfect foil to both of them. So you have a 3-way triangle of stuff. And when you can get the Chicago crowd to chant ketchup and mustard during a promo, and we want mustard.
We want mustard.
It is the best feud of the year. Go back, watch Ring of Honor, watch everything before, and see this progression. It's been subtle. It's been well played out, and it has had a couple ups and downs. We're like, how are they going to get any farther with this? And they still turn it around. Best feud of the year.
Wow, I'm missing out. Yeah,
Watch ROH.
I guess so.
Listen, y'all have
Jesse.
the login information.
Jesse,
All right. So for me, the feud of the year happened very early on in the year with stay over from 2022 towards the end of that. But it was Sammy and Roman. To me, that when it came to a head at Elimination Chamber, The amount of heart in that story, the amount of just feeling it was hometown for Sammy, it was just electric. That whole stadium was on fire for this. To me, I had a thought. I knew it was like a 20% chance, but they were going to pull the trigger for Sammy, and I would have absolutely loved it for that. They didn't, because Roman's Roman, and he's got almost more days than Hogan, maybe like an eighth of the defenses, but I don't want to get into that. However, that was my favorite feud. I think it was absolutely amazing. And I think
had one of the best signs in the crowd we ever.
Oh yeah, two of the best signs. First was the Roman Reigns with the tribal queef that made me giggle because I'm a 12-year-old boy, and second was because we're in Canada, of course, and so that whole if CM Punk or if Cena wins, we riot. If Roman wins, we will exit quietly and politely,
which we did.
That's great.
That was sidebar real quick. I knew we had something special going on with Bi-Conics only because I remember after that, on my way home from watching it with some friends of mine, me, Professor, and Minnie had a 10-minute conversation on my drive home about just the emotions we were feeling after watching that main event. And I was just like, I went to sleep. I was like, I was spent emotionally. That was beautiful storytelling. And I was like, oh my gosh, maybe I'm not tired of this bloodline storyline. And then next week happened. And I was like, never mind.
Sammy, the night before that Friday SmackDown, when he came out to a standing ovation for 20 minutes before even saying anything,
it was beautiful.
And I didn't even care. I enjoyed that. Like after his promo, I would have gone to war for that man.
We lost our voices screaming for him.
Yeah, when he starts yelling at the crowd in French, it's the Maison de Monac, like yelling at him. Ah.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
It's moments like these that I love, that we all get to go to different live events and we get to experience different things. We've had such a fun time this year. Most of us here got to go to some sort of wrestling event, but my goal for 2024 is we're going to try to get more boots on the ground. We're going to try to get everybody out to more things. It's going to be so much fun. All righty, Andrew, here we go. Best feud of the year for you. What you got?
All right. So my first one was Cena and the Minions in training build up. Because for me, this was my best feud / build. So yeah, this build up, it has been my favorite storyline going in professional wrestling, and it's finally paid off, and it was so worth it. My honorable mention will be my favorite feud will be Christian Cage. Just everybody that he has had shit with over the last year has been so entertaining. I love the rocking the turtleneck and just everything he does to make him just such a deplorable person, but he's done it so well. And yeah, it's been entertaining. So,
Can I interject there for just one second with the Christian Cage patriarchy thing? Because I think I told this to a few, but not all of our Bi-Conics members here. I feel like Rick signed with AEW so that when he eventually kicks the bucket, Christian can feud with Andrade, or he can jump ship to WWE and feud with Charlotte. Either way, I'd like to see either one.
I'm your dad now.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
You can bring back David.
Oh my God.
Damn, I thought what I said was bad.
I'm surprised it took us this long to get the high-pitched scream from me. I was like, that's best.
Leave it to Andrew. Andrew will talk all the shit. Andrew, don't give no shit.
Andrew, you are now my new favorite person. I love you.
Yeah, Andrew's in the top 3, just like that.
Top 3 immediately. All right. Going. Oh, Jesse.
Be okay. I'll be okay.
I still love you.
You're always number 1 in my heart.
What?
It's just the rankings change. They shift.
Oh, I'm always at the bottom.
Can I at least be in your MySpace top 8, please?
Oh, go. Adolfo, go.
Yes, go, Adolfo. Before I get exposed even more.
Hello. I'm gonna say what my favorite feud is. 3. So for me, my favorite feud of 2023, and this is saying a lot because I am an AEW guy. My favorite feud was the Bloodline. From the beginning of the year all the way through to the summer, that was, in my opinion, the one consistent storyline / feud in WWE that rose above all of the backstage nonsense that was causing such a tumultuous time in WWE. And at that Roman Reigns Solo Sikoa Jay and Jimmy Uso match, man, that was just like, I felt that family feud, and it was just like when Jay and Jimmy got that W, it's so good. It's so good. It was good.
I'd love to see it. Don't tell Adolfo to go check out the SmackDown reviews we did during the summer because your SmackDown crew was over it. Yeah, me, Professor, and Minnie were just like, we're done. All right, Professor. Yep, you're up.
Because speaking of that, I can talk about it. I think the first 3 months of Bloodline of 2023, I was all in on going into Elimination Chamber and everything else. Absolutely golden. And then we got this sort of neutral, I don't give a damn for the next 6 or 7 months, which if you go listen to the SmackDown reviews, it was like, why am I here?
That is when the Bloodline. That is when the Bloodline took like 30 whole minutes of a 2-hour SmackDown program for shenanigans.
And we timed one. I don't know what it was. Probably somewhere. I guess it would have been June, maybe.
It was
June
like 45 minutes.
It was 45 minutes of 1 hour, and then there was 10 minutes of commercials, and there was no match the whole first hour. So that at that point, I was done with that.
There was also a point where they took time away from one of the pay-per-views where they could have had a friggin' women's match on there. So Cody Rhodes could announce that main event Jey Uso, which I don't like the name, it doesn't work, is now on Raw. Why?
What Jesse said, I agree. However, as far as the feud and what it did for 2023 and what it was, I agree with everything Adolfo said. When the heat worked, it did work. When the plot lines worked, it did work. That's not my number one. JVL called me. It's Adam Cole and MJF. It was perfect. It was a sitcom.
That was made for us. It was made for us.
It was hilarious. I'm in the demographic. My match of the year that set that off, and I called it on the review, and it would be really funny if they did a lot of these vignettes for the next few months. And then they did. And they were funny, and they were awkward, but they were funny, and they kept going. And then we had Adam in the middle of that, which was just as funny. And then we played out other things.
I still have PTSD from that word from Full Gear.
Sure, you will have that forever. And they lost some of their way here and there. By the time we got to All In, All Out, All in the Family, all detergent mess of things, we all together lost where we're going. It's still so much fun, and it sucks that Adam Cole jumped off a ramp that didn't need to be there and blew out his ankle, and now we're treading water.
Or did he?
Or we'll never know. I had so much fun watching that feud and seeing it evolve into not a feud, into a friendship, into this sort of beautiful, platonic, almost bi-curious relationship between the two of them, which is heartening to see. That's my pick.
It fits in. We're the Bi-Conics after all. All right, Minnie, you're up. The best feud of 2023 for you.
So I'm gonna start with the one that kind of didn't start as a joke. That wasn't a joke. The other one kind of started as a joke, but the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. So the one that kind of really wasn't a joke was LA Knight versus Roman Reigns, because I just LA Knight coming in, just stomping on everything Roman Reigns has been doing as a character, and be like, nah, I don't acknowledge you. Fuck you. I'm the biggest draw in this business. No, screw you. Fortunately, we knew he wasn't going to win, but I just liked the build up to it. It was really cool. The one that started as a joke but evolved over time was CM Punk versus AEW. I kind of just wrote that down, and I was like, because I couldn't think of anything, but the more I thought about it, I'm like, this makes sense. He fought just about half the company behind and everything. But there was issues of them not giving him the location of ride or anything to events and everything. He had to figure it out himself. I thought that was all funny, and then he went to WWE and has not said a word about AEW, just pissing off every AEW fan ever.
He's not allowed to
You
legally
can't do that.
Wow.
Oh, but I know, but it's pissing everybody off. They're like, just roast AEW already. I think it's hilarious. But yeah, I was in my top few to CM Punk versus AEW. Sure.
Love it. Love it.
I can't follow that up. That was so good. Like, oh my goodness.
Minnie, you did forget one other one though. There's one of the year that it was for 1 week only. It was really good before All In. It was FTR aggravated assault versus the person he had road rage with.
I was going to say that. I was going to say
the revolver.
That gun charge, man.
FTR and gun charges. Yeah.
That was the hottest feud of 2023.
Or you could say,
they missed an opportunity. They
you
could have had
really do.
FTR feud with the guns right after that.
And then surgically tag team with them in an 8-man tag.
Oof.
Or you could have done pro wrestling versus all customs agents throughout the world, right? Background checks and passport
have mercy.
negotiations, and some of us are not allowed to leave the country apparently.
The new
Okay.
hot faction TSA.
Ric Flair versus Tony Khan.
Ric Flair versus his pacemaker, more like it.
Ric Flair
versus Father Time.
Yeah, we'll go versus dementia. Yeah, there's nothing left,
Yeah.
Ric Flair.
Child.
I had to mention Ric Flair somewhere in there because you all know.
Go, Mikey, go. Go, Mikey,
Oh
go.
Lord. Okay, so
Sorry.
So funny enough, so my top 3 were very hard to pick from, only because for different reasons I enjoyed the feud. My number 3 pick, surprisingly enough, and we talked about this, me and did over the NXT review. Surprisingly, I really enjoyed it, even though it was only like a 2-month feud, but it still had made its impact, and it got to showcase one of my favorite new peoples right now. Number 3 was the feud between Dijak and Eddie Thorpe, which led to their strap match. Now, we did talk about there was a lot of, I was worried because Shawn Michaels was showing some implications. I was like, we're dealing with a Native American wrestler. Let's not cross some certain lines. And then Dijak cut a promo that was very almost crossing the line into like slavery. I was like, what is happening? But thankfully, the right person won this feud. Eddie ended up beating Dijak to an inch of his life in the strap match, choked him out. It was great, though Eddie's niece will never unsee all the damage that happened in front of her, which again goes to what we're talking about, children and moms being in ringside for these crazy matches. My top 2 was really hard, so I had to go watch back everything that I knew about this feud. My number 2, for as short as was Hangman and Swerve's 2-match duology feud. Because honestly, that for me personally, that is the only story in AEW that actually was given the time. And apparently, Hangman and Swerve got lucky with whoever was writing that feud for them because it actually made logical sense and wasn't dragged out. But my number 1 feud of the year comes from NXT, and that is the Carmelo and Ilya trilogy that we got between Great American Bash, No Mercy, and then Halloween Havoc. That Great American Bash match is one of my all-time favorite matches this year outside of Ospreay and Speedball Mike Bailey. That was also in contention to be my number 1 men's match of the year. And that was the best match those two had in the trilogy. But the whole entire storyline of Ilya like doing anything and everything, and Carmelo still being able to have an answer and a counter to it was just beautiful in-ring wrestling storytelling. And then it also birthed one of my favorite moments too, because of what happened at Great American Bash. We got to see Trick Williams go out on his own and hold his own as a single star, and he had a fun match against Ilya. He was North American. He's the only person to beat Dominic Mysterio and take that NXT North American Championship from him, even though we only got to see him have it for the week before Dominic got it back, which is bullshit. That's neither here nor there. And honestly, it makes me happy to see Ilya as champion because that is something that I've wanted to see for Ilya for the longest time. And now that he's NXT champion, I'm excited for him to hold on to this thing. I'm not excited about him versus Baron Corbin at Deadline because that's a feud I don't care about. But I am excited to just see Ilya Dragunov reign with NXT and the eventual match when West takes that title off him, because West to me is the one person that should be able to beat Ilya down the line when Ilya runs through the men's roster. But the Carmelo Ilya trilogy is my feud of the year, with Hangman Swerve being a very close second because it was tough.
I have one more feud I wanted to mention, Mikey, because it seems like everyone got to mention multiple. So I had one more I want to mention. It happened earlier this year. WWPR versus Auschwitz.
Oh, God. How that got through the PR editing team, no one will know. How do you have a concentration camp scene as part of Dominic Mysterio's entrance for WrestleMania, man?
I forgot about that.
Yeah, WWPR lost that feud.
They lost that feud with the PR. All right. So that was the best.
Hold on, Mikey. Whoever the tech, here's another really quick one. If you were live at the event, you'd understand whoever the tech guy was at WrestleMania versus the crowd.
Versus the crowd, because that screen was not working for half of
SoFi Stadium versus the crowd.
Lord have mercy. It was really tough to. They cut out during the best match too, because we had to like zoom in on our phone because I was like, put on the screen. I want to see Gunther, Sheamus, and Drew kill each other at a close range. I can't see from all up here. They look like ants.
Like ants.
That was
giant meaty ants.
All right. So we've covered the best feud. So now here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna go worst feud, and then we're gonna go into worst match of the year too.
Okay.
Now we're gonna talk some shit because listen, there was a lot of good things this year, but I have a lot of shit to say too because there's some crappy stuff that I watched, and I want to go first for worst.
Oh,
Okay, I understand, Mikey. We've got a certain amount of time on this.
I'm gonna keep this short. I don't care if it's recency bias. For me this year, 2023, the worst feud, only because of from a writer's perspective and character development, it helped nobody and it was just trash the whole entire time. I did not enjoy it because it dragged out for too long. Worst feud for me is the MJF Jay White build towards their match at Full Gear 2023. Lord have mercy. This is the worst feud that I have ever seen this year, only because at this point, MJF had ran through a bunch of people leading into, let's say, the beginning of October, the end of September. Like at this point, he ran through pretty much a bunch of people in the men's division. And also, this is also where my hatred towards the disrespect towards the Ring of Honor Tag Team Championships were happening because Adam Cole and MJF were holding them hostage. And MJF is still holding it hostage. That's neither here nor there. It makes no sense to me that Jay White continuously got one up on MJF the entire time leading into their match at Full Gear. Like he was beating them down. He was winning his matches. He continually had Bullet Club Gold interfere and start taking things away from Max, which I thought was going to lead into, I don't know. I would have rather had Jay White take that title off of MJF because AEW is falling into the same trap as WWE where we want records. I'm like, bro, calm down. All for it to culminate in a through line storyline throughout the pay-per-view that MJF gets attacked by the guns on the pre-show. Then he has to go to the hospital and then he stone colds himself back to the arena for his match. And for me personally, Max, you did not have to do the dangerous stuff that you did. Like when the table broke and he still did the elbow drop onto the floor. I'm like, you could have shattered an elbow, bro. And then that scary dive through the rope, because MJF doesn't normally dive through stuff like that. His foot got caught in the rope, and thankfully Jay White caught him before MJF landed on his head. It was really scary to watch live. But then the ultimate middle finger to me as a fan, you had MJF who was struggling with a bum knee this whole entire time. Literally, MJF right now is being built as Super Cena from the 2000s era of WWE, where it's like, LOL, Max wins, and I'm getting sick of it. And it did nothing for MJF. And then we come to find out that Jay White also was not happy with this because he expressed his dislike of how this whole feud went for him. And I'm like, of course he has every right to be mad. This is Jay White. How you gonna sign one of the biggest people from New Japan in the modern era, and then this is his first feud? I'm like, bro, this was not it. And I was so upset. So for me, this was my worst feud because it made Jay White look like a fucking goober, and it makes me mad. All right, JVL, you're up next.
I can definitely see that for the recency bias. It makes complete sense. Mine was the brown note that is the Don Callis family versus Jericho, Omega, anybody else that they dragged in for this the entirety of the year, because anyone that got tied into this whole entire storyline of Kenny Omega needs to lose a bunch was basically washed away and had nothing good happen the entire year. So nothing else needed for it. Don't listen to their theme song. You'll poop yourself.
All right, on to me for worst feud of the year. I'm going to echo my colleague's statement about something being, how do you put it so eloquently, a wet fart. For me, it was the Brock Lesnar and Bobby Lashley feud. I wanted this to go so well. I've been pining for this since the late 2000s when they both just missed each other in the WWE at the same time, and it turned out to be nothing. It was so disappointing. I myself know that I have a compulsive need for closure, and to end this match in a dick kick circa the same way AJ Styles Shinsuke Nakamura a few years ago, I hated it. It was so disappointing. I didn't want any parts of this. I wanted to black this out from memory, so I did some mental damage to myself to bring this back up here for all of you lovely folks. That's it for me. I don't want to talk about it anymore. I want to forget it happened.
I forgot about that, and then I was reminded. I'm like, oh God, what are we doing? All right, Andrew.
I want to talk more about the Brock Lesnar and Bobby.
I will leave. I'm just kidding. So, Andrew,
your therapist is on speed dial.
Worst feud in 2023.
Mine is Eddie Edwards and Frankie Kazarian. It was a feud that on paper should have been really entertaining. And when it was actually produced, it was very much not. And it went on for way too long. It should have just been let to die after it got hit by a car the first time. And the fact that both of the folks in this feud look stronger like before and after, since this feud ended, they've had some really great matches, both of them. This feud was just basically just big waste of time for everybody involved and everybody watching. It was such a letdown in every way for me.
Let me put it into context for the rest of you who don't watch Impact. This was a 4.5 month feud.
Yeah.
And it just got worse and worse as it went on. It dragged out for way too long.
Yeah, they had, I think, 4 matches and many promos involved in this, and it was just like nobody could care about this feud, and they just kept doing it, like, oh, let's try this, okay, let's go. And by the end of it, it just didn't seem like anybody, even the people involved, wanted to be involved in it. So yeah, it was a letdown. Happy they're done with it.
God, that feud was horrible. That was time we never got back. Adolfo, worst feud of the year for you.
There's this level of catharsis that we all have PTSD over these feuds, so let's all talk about them again.
Yeah, I was about to say, for me, like, whenever I see the bad, I just automatically delete. And but we're reliving this now, so here we go. My worst feud for 2023 was Cody and Roman, because there was such a build up. This is my life's work, Roman Reigns, Cody Rhodes. Oh, I need to end my story. I need to finish the story. Right. And then Roman wins, retains the title. Okay, fine. That was a bit of a dick punch, but whatevs. And then it just seems like the rest of the year, there was nothing. And I guess they're supposed to main event WrestleMania 40. Is this official? Has this been made official?
No, but I'm going to tell you right now, really quickly, Cody's not winning the Rumble. I think the men's elimination chamber is going to be for the main event match at WrestleMania. Cody's going to win the elimination chamber, and that's how we get Cody and Roman too. And I swear to all the wrestling gods, if Cody does not win at WrestleMania, I don't know what I'm going to do with myself.
He won't.
Right?
CM Punk.
No, he's going to be too busy because he's going to take that title off of Seth. I love Seth, but Punk is taking that title from Seth.
Right.
We're going down a rabbit hole. Let's refocus, please.
So just for all that story buildup and everything, and then just like that flaccid, wet fart of a match, and then as we can see, no one even can fucking remember that they were feuding. Excuse me, that's my one for the night. So there we go.
Sure.
We're way into it. It's fine. Like, we're good. Lord have mercy. That feud was bad.
I would love for that to be my worst feud. The problem is it doesn't feel like a feud looking back months and months later, right? It was just, here's this thing. Nothing. Oh, nothing happened. Why even do that at all then? There's no reason to have that. I am going to jump on the shoulders of the JBL, the AEW Dynamite duo, trio, whatever her name was. I forgot her name. It's been a while. I'm sorry, JBL. It's been 6 weeks. All the Don Callis stuff was awful by the end. It just dragged on. Don Callis is pulling out x-rays. Here's how you could hurt Kenny Omega. Just dragging Takeshita down. Takeshita, who doesn't need this, who looks like a bad guy in every villain with that stiff upper lip and that leather jacket. Perfect. Doesn't need Don Callis. Don Callis watered it down and made it worse and worse. He's a heel. They hate him. Fine. All the Chris Jericho stuff got muddy when we were doing that in the middle. Are they friends? Are they not? Will he join? Will he won't? And then it kind of
Golden Jets.
It didn't go anywhere. I don't know. We were doing more segments about the scar on Don Callis's head than we were anything else at one point. Those feuds to me were messy and useless. Something I was talking about before I even went on. A feud I am not liking and is potentially there for me, and I got to catch up on it. This Santos Rey Mysterio feud makes no sense to me. It feels shoehorned and weird, and like Vince McMahon just wants to mess with brown people. Let them have the LWO. Stop making it weird. You don't need this in any way. What are you doing? It just doesn't. It's flat. If there were a few more months to it, maybe that would be my worst feud. But right now, I'm just so disinterested in that. It doesn't even feel like a real heel turn. Am I wrong? Am I out of pocket? It just feels weird.
I think the issue is that they waited too long to pull the trigger on this, because they should have did this. I want to say, because we were getting hints and teases from SummerSlam on, they should have did this post SummerSlam if we were going to do this.
Sure.
But they waited too long, and the way we went about it was whack. Carlito should have gotten involved more and started planting seeds for weeks to lead into it. But it literally only took literally not even a week. It took one SmackDown in a matter of 30 minutes for Santos to turn.
It made no sense.
It made no sense. But we did get a banger between him and Dragon Lee at
You are not wrong.
Survival Series. But the story is weird.
Why leave LWO alone? Just leave it alone. Leave it alone.
That Poncho
Works to live by.
it.
That
All right,
Poncho-
Vinny.
Mhm.
Worst feud of 2023. What you got?
Cody Rhodes, Brock Lesnar. That made no fucking sense for it to happen. Also came up with the tail end of Cody not winning at WrestleMania when he should have. But yeah, that one made no sense to me. It just came out of nowhere, and I was just like, it would have been that match. That Raw after Mania would have been so much better if they actually would have did the tag match of Cody and Lesnar versus Solo and Roman. That match would have been awesome, but they decided they wanted to make Brock versus Cody for 2 months, and that was really stupid. So yeah, I'm gonna say Cody versus Brock Lesnar.
That feud was a thing.
Still better than Don Callis.
You're not wrong. All right, we broke down the feud. Now we got to get more specific. So this is the new category, the worst match of the year. And I'm gonna be honest, I actually had to dig for this because I was like, there was a lot of mediocre matches. And then at first I was like, there's not really any matches I had hated with the burning passion. And then I looked at my list. I'm like, oh, never mind. I have a few that I can choose from. And when it's my turn, we'll get to it. But JBL, we're going to start with you. What is the worst match of 2023?
I don't have to go into much detail on this. Texas Chainsaw horror match between Jeff Jarrett and Jeff Hardy.
Oh, I forgot about that. That was
everyone did.
I don't mean to interject.
Worse than Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Yeah, go ahead.
I don't mean to interject. I'm just jumping off this really fast. That and the Chicago condiment street fight in the arena between him and Briscoe, which was just a mustard and relish
anything with Jeff Jarrett was
Jeff
not
Jarrett
great.
had two of the worst matches I've ever seen in the history. Carry on, please. I apologize.
No, I don't need to. That is the end of it. It was not memorable, and it was not memorable for the worst product placement in the world. It didn't need to be on the card. They could have had the TBS championship match on that card, and it would have been a lot better. And we don't need to talk about it anymore. I'm moving on.
I might talk about it later.
Oh, God.
All right, Jesse. Worst match of the year.
All right. So I have no followers. I only have brothers and sisters in arms. So I ask you all to join me for ROH AEW, because for me, it was Righteous versus MJF. I wanted this match to be good. It wasn't necessarily horrible, but the decision behind the booking was absolute shit. All you did was bury Vincent and Dutch, bury, as John would call them, Diet Wyatt, who I am a big fan of. And what did it do for MJF? Nothing. They don't need to hold those titles. It's not helping their storyline. And that's it. I will never not be pissed off about that.
Okay. I'm going to go off here because I didn't have a worst match, because on my list that I got for questions that wasn't there. I had 3 that I went through and I found, and one was the match that I scored the lowest of all the matches since I've been reviewing. One was a match that I scored pretty low, and it tied into one of my least favorite build-up feuds. And then another one was also a match that was involved in the Kazarian and Edwards feud that I really didn't like. But you just reminded me, Jesse, of something that this would be my worst. It just made me think. I know it's not quite the category, but everything that's been done with the Ring of Honor championships, other than the women's title, is my worst of everything in professional wrestling right now.
That's it. We're done this category here. Nobody's going to beat that. I apologize to everyone, but nothing's going to beat that. But the titles where they belong. I've been telling you for weeks. Why weren't you listening?
That's tough to follow up. But Andrew, I can't disagree with you, but I'm still going to talk about my worst match because this one also made me mad. But Adolfo, worst match of the year for you. What you got, bud? You are muted. You are still muted.
There were no bad matches for Adolfo this year.
We're just
they were all
listening.
wonderful.
We're just listening to Minnie breathe. Minnie doesn't know.
We left him.
He's saying move on to someone else. Professor, go, Professor.
He
go.
actually said
Somebody else.
every
I'm gonna go.
Kenny
I'm gonna go ahead.
I think on Zoom you can unmute him too. By the way.
Oh, okay.
I think you have that power, Mikey. Unmute him.
Professor, go ahead.
I'm gonna talk anyway. I'm gonna jump in here. I'm the one who brought up the fact that worst match of the year. I got two. One I don't think is fair, but I'm gonna say it anyway. And
oh my god, I forgot about that.
Thank you, Gable Stevenson. I'm sorry, I apologize. Combined his names. I think he was pressed too hard to be this new gold medal Kurt Angle guy. I think the pressure was too much for him. I think they rushed him in there. Nothing wrong with Baron Corbin. I've talked about Baron Corbin a lot. On the mic, cardboard, awful. As a wrestler, as a worker, great. Probably someone who could have really supported him in that match, no problem. But that thing was garbage, and it's a shame because it was a Great American Bash, which had a lot of good matches. One that I mentioned earlier in my best of the year. That compared to everything else that was happening there was that. That's my 1B. My 1A was Ronda Rousey, Shayna Baszler in that not an MMA wrestling, whatever the hell that was match. Drove me crazy. Andrew and I talked MMA at length. I watched that for 20 years. In the gap in which I wasn't watching wrestling, that was my thing. I watched Ronda Rousey at her peak in MMA doing these things. I was a fan when she started there, and I've just watched this slow decline. I don't know what the crap it was. It wasn't enough MMA to be an MMA thing. They were calling cues to each other. They're friends. It's like they put no work in. They rushed it. They missed kicks. Some of the stuff they did was clunky, even if I don't even have the word flames on the side of my face. Just jaw-dropping. It just boggles my mind how they could go out there and do that as a goodbye match, as your last match.
Seriously.
That's what you put that amount of effort into it. As a teacher, I'm like, fine, I'll fail you. If you want the F, I'll give it to you. Okay, don't come back.
At least it worked really well, paid off really well for Shayna Baszler to really skyrocket from there.
Yeah, she's done great.
No. Oh,
she's done great things since then. Yeah, she's her promos are better.
I don't understand what
her
happened.
Hairline is fixed. She's doing great.
I don't know if it was because it was in WWE and WWE doesn't let them do crazy stuff, but like when she teamed up with Marina Shafir on Ring of Honor, I thought that was a better match than what we got at SummerSlam between Shayna and Ronda. I was like, Lord have mercy. All right, Adolfo, it seems that we're back with you. You come back into the stratosphere. What you got for worst match of the year?
It's because we're talking about these matches and I pulled them out of my memory now. Anyway, some ASMR for you. My worst match. And I'm actually going to disagree with Mikey on this, okay? My worst match of the year was the MJF Switchblade Jay White match. But I thought that the buildup for that was actually very good. I enjoyed the storyline that they had with Switchblade Jay White stealing the belt and MJF and that whole thing. I thought that was good. I thought that was entertaining. It made me want to keep coming back to watch. And then
shots fired.
At the end, at the pinnacle of it, of what should have been the capstone, was a fucking ambulance ride and nonsense. It was horrible. Just like, I didn't believe MJF, he had a leg injury. I would have, if they maybe gave MJF like a shoulder injury or something like that, that would have been more believable. And Adam Cole, being at ringside, and I know that furthers the whole like mystery of who the devil is, but I would have much. We're done here. We're done.
We're gonna wait for another episode for me to go into why Adolfo is fundamentally wrong.
That sounds like a great you guys episode. Let's move on.
You both agreed that the match at the end of the build-up, whether the build-up was good or not, the match was horribly executed at the end.
Yeah, it was not great.
Minnie, have an opinion. Minnie, have an opinion.
Worst match.
Essentially, you took my top two there with the Shayna Baszler match and everything, but I'm gonna go with my number 3, Tommy Dreamer versus Bully Ray at Sacrifice.
Oh God, I forgot that happened.
Are you
Why the
watching
fuck-
1998? DW?
why-
What's going on here?
Why the fuck are these?
Which
two
retirement
dudes
home was
way
that at?
past- It was at TNA. That's where the old ECW's
Where?
guys go because Rhino's over there too.
You're
Yeah,
not wrong.
the two dudes that were some of the most believable brawlers in all of wrestling back in their heyday are now in this match, and it was a cheese grater. I'm gonna go with that one. That was my number 3, but since my top 1 and 2 were gone, yeah, they should not do the Ric Flair thing and just retire.
I totally forgot about that match at Sacrifice. Oh God, that was a horrible match. That was really bad. And it sucks because we were coming off of Josh Alexander and Bully Ray having a pretty phenomenal match at Hard to Kill in January. Oh, Lord. All right. So I had a really tough time picking my worst match because the biggest offenders for me this year have been WWE and AEW. So my runner-up actually was Chris Jericho versus Adam Cole in that not even a street fight at Double or Nothing 2023.
Oh, wow.
Where Sabu was the guest referee for 2
Yikes.
whole minutes of that match.
That thing was garbage. Oh,
That was not even a street fight. But like, I was upset with that match. And then I looked through my list and there was one match that actually really pissed me off. And those of us that reviewed SummerSlam know how I feel. My worst match of the year was Roman Reigns versus Jey Uso in that tribal combat match at SummerSlam 2023. They, similar to what everybody else has said, sometimes the execution is horrible when it comes to this. The execution of this match made no damn sense to me. Here, I was like, listen, I knew Jey wasn't going to win, but what would have saved this match had the fact was what really irritated me is that they set up these rules, they tell the audience these rules, and then WWE doesn't follow through with the rules, which made no damn sense. This is a 27-minute match that was like 17 whole minutes was just everybody walking around doing nothing. And then Jimmy coming in to cost Jey the match made no freaking sense to me at that point, and it still doesn't. Lord have mercy. This was to go from the spectacular that was last year's SummerSlam in 2022, where Brock Lesnar lifted up the ring with a forklift and Paul Heyman being used as a projectile weapon, to what should have been a really fun match, but they made this so boring and painful to watch. Just made no sense. But yeah, that tribal combat match from SummerSlam is my worst match of the year. That was god-awful storytelling, god-awful wrestling.
Yeah, because Roman trips on a cord walking Jey by the hair and then just goes, oh, I tripped.
It was
Whatever.
rough.
But then they come back 5 minutes later. He trips over the same cord again. There's all kinds of stupid shit in there. Yeah, no, you're right.
Yeah, but the Jimmy Uso costing Jey the match really pushed it over the edge for me. I was furious. I was like, this is stupid.
And we said this on the review, and I don't want to talk too much. I know we're up against it, but they took all the ritual out of what should have been a ritual thing, right? We were waiting to see if they had brought out Rikishi and The Rock and all these elders.
Lord have mercy.
We booked it better. We all booked it better.
Yeah, we booked it better.
What made it even worse was the next night when they're like, why did Jimmy do it? Because I don't want to see you turn into Roman Reigns.
Oh, that made it worse for me too.
That was
so bad.
Everyone go check out that SmackDown review where we're all pulling our eyeballs out. Like, what does that even mean?
Yes, more views, please.
Seriously.
Exactly.
Alrighty. So now we leave worst match behind. And now, once again, we're going to go back to best and worst. So best pay-per-view of the year. This one's going to be interesting because there's a plethora of us that have watched that, like me, watch all the freaking pay-per-views. But that's because wrestling is what I love, and I love sharing it with this. All right, JBL, we're going to start with you. We're going to start with best. So best pay-per-view of 2023. What you got?
And I'm glad we're going into this for best ones, because on the worst one, I think all of us are going to say the same thing at the same time. So I'll call it when we go into it and we can all say it together. But we'll leave that for the next one there. Mine was a tie between two because there was the heartfelt part of mine for me this year. My 1A was Elimination Chamber 2023 because I got to go with Jesse. It was the first live event I'd gone to in a while. Pay-per-view itself was also really good, but sharing it with someone who we were getting into wrestling together as we were becoming friends and all that big stuff, which just made it that much more fun and special. My one that I watched and I had to watch later on, one of the few ones I watched after I'd missed, and this was my best one, my 1B, was Death Before Dishonor this year. That card was insane. The Lego spot with the Dark Order was ridiculous, and Athena versus Willow was my women's match of the year. Take it for what it is, but go back and watch Death Before Dishonor this year from Ring of Honor. You will not be disappointed.
Was that the same one where the guy broke his leg taking the Canadian Destroyer off a ladder on another ladder?
Yes, it is. That's where Dante Martin has that horrible injury that just came back.
Yeah, I remember watching that. That was actually overall the card was cool, except for that.
Still a good match until that point, but that's where I am.
I overthrew the mic. So I have nothing extra to add. For me, it was Elimination Chamber just being there. And I know that's definitely making me a little bit biased, but it's my opinion. So I get to decide what the hell I want. I really enjoyed that. I thought the card was good, minus the blackout of Brock Lesnar, Bobby Lashley. I could have done without that. But aside from that, I enjoyed the card the entire time. And just seeing them bring the chamber down is just one of those awe-inspiring moments. And then for me, it was being in there and getting to see Bray while he was still with the company.
And in Montreal as well, which is a huge city to go see wrestling in.
Love to see it. Andrew, best pay-per-view of the year.
Mine, because I feel like, again, it's the little engine that could, was from Impact. It was Bound for Glory. Bound for Glory had so many amazing things in it. The Monsters Ball match, I did not think it was going to turn out the way it did. PCO getting power bombed onto a stack of cinder blocks covered in tacks. Insane. We had the Mike Bailey versus Will Ospreay match. We had Trinity versus James.
That match.
And to see what it meant for both of them at the end of the match, just how much they were invested in that. The Alex Shelley versus Josh Alexander match, the tag team title match, the Call Your Shot Gauntlet match. We had some fun, really fun entrance into that, and to see Jordan Grace win and call her shot. And then the way that pay-per-view ended with the announcement of the return of TNA it's such an incredible moment. And it's really been, that moment has been building my excitement more than anything else going into 2024. So for me, that puts it over the top for me.
Man, Bound for Glory was so good. All right, Adelpho, you're up. What is your pay-per-view of 2023?
Okay. Again, this pay-per-view just holds a place in my heart, and I'm so happy I got to see it. Backlash in Puerto Rico. I just, every match on that card was a banger, and the audience just added to that. There was not one match where there was any silence. Everyone was just off the chain. And it was so great just seeing wrestling on my island and just hearing the crowd and so Backlash.
I love that, Adelpho. Professor, what you got for best pay-per-view?
I really want to give something to AEW, but I can't. Not when Backlash is out there. I absolutely agree with Adolfo, everything Adolfo just said. Just going back and looking at that card and reminding myself of it and what I watched and the chills I got every single Bianca Belair, Io Sky, Seth Rollins, Omos. Remember that? And it worked.
One of the few matches I wasn't mad at Omos at.
Austin Theory, Bobby Lashley, Bronson Reed, Rhea Ripley, Zelina Vega, Bad Bunny, Damian Priest, the Bloodline, Matt Riddle, Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, pinfall, like Cody Rhodes defeated Brock Lesnar, all those things. Going through that and going, oh my God, I remembered all of them. They stuck in my brain. I got the chills. The island showed up, put itself into the hearts of us all, I feel. I don't want to say on the map because they're on the map, but this sort of, oh no, hey, we're here. You see us, come back. We are a worthy audience. And washing away the stain of the 1980s Hulk Hogan bullshit and the madness of all those other stories, if you're familiar with all the lore and trash that Island has gotten in professional wrestling. I thought that was great. It's up there with me for WrestleMania Day 1. I thought WrestleMania Day 1 had a lot of great things about it, partly because I was texting people who were there and talking all the shit, and that was a lot of fun. But those Backlash for sure for me was like, yep, that's okay. I don't mind reviewing WWE this year. And then the rest of the year happened.
I'm telling you, if you're going to pick one, the NXT pay-per-views are actually pretty solid.
You're telling me. Andrew keeps telling me to look at Impact and tells me all the cool stuff
Impact is also great, too. The Ring of Honor pay-per-views are always very stellar, too. When you find time, Professor, we're going to do a special series where we go through everything.
Tommy Dreamer and Rhino sound cool, too.
Oh, we'll talk. Listen, that was, yeah. Minnie, best pay-per-view of the year for you?
I have two for personal reasons. Then I have another one because I want to give a shout out to that because we haven't talked about it, surprisingly. So WrestleMania and Stand and Deliver, getting to see those in person, especially getting to see a lot of my heroes in person for the first time. I've been watching wrestling since 2002, since I was 4 years old. And now I'm going to see a lot of these dudes in person for the first time. And then seeing Professor's Nostradamus left field prediction of Shane McMahon coming out and then proceed the Terror
What the hell was
Squad.
that?
That was
I'm
incredible.
still kind of
in
pissed at you for
person.
that, Professor.
Bring me the hate for that one. I
That was
felt something.
And then
I'll
watching
take it.
Snoop Dogg hit the worst people's elbow of all time, but it
time.
was still fantastic.
Improvised on the spot.
Saved that moment.
Yep.
Saved it.
It was incredible. But then another one that we actually all watched together for a review and everything that I actually truly enjoyed. I think AEW should get a little bit of representation here. Was Forbidden Door. AEW and New Japan Pro Wrestling put on a phenomenal card this year. I'm surprised
No
a lot of us had a top Will Ospreay versus Kenny Omega, Okada versus Danielson. There's a lot of really good matches on the card. It's a non-canon event, so it really have no implications coming into everything. But it's still a phenomenal card, and it was one of the few bright spots for AEW this year that I thought. So that was up there, and then of course going in person to see WrestleMania as one of my very first events ever in person, being WrestleMania, the Super Bowl of wrestling was incredible, and then going to see an NXT event live and doing some of the cool stuff there. It was those three are probably going to be up there for my favorite pay-per-views.
Man, y'all took some of my tops, but thankfully
We are your tops.
Hey, anyways, thankfully because I'm a mad lad and watch pretty much every single pay-per-view, I still had some good stuff. Bound for Glory was definitely my top choice. Andrew already explained it beautifully why it was. Just the whole entire card, it never felt like a dull moment. And while we Impact boys agree that the build was garbage to Bound for Glory, everybody I feel like figured out, be like, yeah, this was not the best build, so let's just go out there and kill it. And everybody did it. We also got some new signees from the Call Your Shot Gauntlet. Miss Sunny Kiss is now in Impact, which is, oh my God, her and Trinity had such a great match. That was, it was so beautiful to watch. My honorable mention is going to go to Impact's Under Siege pay-per-view, only because that was a card that on paper, necessarily I didn't think was going to be good, but once again, everybody proved me wrong. ABC versus Subculture was my match of the night. Chris Bay and Ace Austin taking on the boys of Subculture was amazing. But my God, the no disqualification match between at that time champion Steve Macklin versus PCO, in which will never look at cookie sheets the same again, because Steve Macklin got busted open when PCO smacked him across the head with the cookie sheet. It was violent, it was gory, and it ended up being a lot better for what it was. PCO actually delivered in that match, and that's crazy. And honestly, it continued with Bound for Glory. But my number one pay-per-view for me, the best pay-per-view, yes.
I'm waiting.
We were saying number one. We were saying number
okay.
one.
I was like, what are we doing?
What?
My number one pay-per-view of the year, the best one for me, is actually going to go to NXT's Battleground pay-per-view. And here's why. Again, on paper, if you look at the matches that were had, I didn't think it was going to be the best one. But to be fair, Battleground was in some heavy competition because there were 4 pay-per-views over Memorial Day weekend this year, which we all divided and conquered. That was a lie, because you had Under Siege for Impact, you had Night of Champions for WWE, you had Double or Nothing for AEW, and then NXT had Battleground. And of the 4 pay-per-views that I watched over Memorial Day weekend, because I was crazy, Battleground ended up being the top one. The triple threat between West, Tyler Bate, and Joe Gacy for the North American Championship was great. The NXT Heritage Cup match between Dragon Lee and Noam Dar was a surprise hit for me. Like, that was amazing. But honestly, Ilya versus Dijak in that last man standing match was amazing as well. I got the Creeds and the Gallus boys facing off for the tag team championships were great. Carmelo and Braun Breaker was a fun match, but obviously, like I said earlier when I talked about Lyra being my women's wrestler of the year, This is where Tiffany and Lyra fought it out to become the new NXT Women's Champion after Indy vacated it when she got hurt and when she went up to main roster. And this was the final match for that, in which Tiffany won the title, but Lyra did not make it easy for her. And this was Tiffany's coming out party too, because then over the summer, it was the summer of Tiffy. It was so much fun to see Tiffany improve so much, and then to have such a good match against Lyra, who is a consummate professional and has been doing this for a while too. Those women showed up and showed out, and NXT's Battleground is my favorite pay-per-view of the year because beginning to end, this is where I felt that I wasn't embarrassed anymore to say that I liked NXT, because this pay-per-view was a prime example of when you give the right people in charge to write and do stories and you get some amazing up-and-coming talent. These NXT kids showed up, they showed out, and honestly, NXT from that point on proved to be the better of the 3 WWE programs that we get every week for me.
That's what it sounds like. I should watch it.
There's a lot of things you should watch, Professor. We already know that.
I am sorry. So now we've
Everyone
got
want to say our worst pay-per-view of the year?
I
On
think
3?
I can guarantee it's not going to be my answer, but
I'm pretty sure it's not mine either.
Andrew, you're supposed to practice. You weren't at rehearsal yesterday.
Fine, we can go through one by
it
one.
always goes better when I wing it.
It does.
I'll do it on the night.
All right,
Do it
JBL, we'll
live.
start with you. Worst pay-per-view of the year.
All right, go ahead, Sid. We're doing it live.
WrestleMania Night 2. Done. Not saying
Oh
anything
yeah,
else.
night 2 was awful. Yeah.
Night 2 was the
WrestleMania Night 2 for me. It smells like cheap cologne and hush money.
Oh, Austin Theory.
But
That-
what's
Cheaper
That
cologne.
United States Championship match was so bad.
so if we can
Um,
collectively talk about it, and then Andrew can talk about the real worst pay-per-view.
Oh,
Wing
I'll
91.
agree. I'll agree with you.
Andrew
that-
agrees.
Sure.
Sure.
I don't actually think I watched it.
Don't.
So,
No,
so-
you missed a lot. You should definitely watch it on repeat
No,
4
don't
times.
So
do
hang on,
that
so
to
wait.
him.
Let's do this.
Slow down
Andrew.
speed too.
Andrew,
I-
say something generic about a bad pay-per-view, and we'll tell you if you're accurate. Just something broad, not
Okay.
specific.
It was not well planned.
Right?
Wow, nailed it.
Oh my God. How did you know?
You're a savant.
Anything else you want to say about it?
The outcomes were the opposite of what the fans had hoped for.
You're right.
100%.
Damn it, got it right.
So good.
That's perfect.
Lord
You
have
wanna-
mercy.
I only know that I only agree because I couldn't pick a worst pay-per-view for myself. I just picked my least favorite of the pay-per-views that I got to watch this year. I started a little bit later into the review party than everyone else. So for me, it was Impact's Emergence. There were some not great matches on there. There were some parts of feuds that were not very good.
It sounds like Night 2 of WrestleMania.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it had some good points to it.
Go 3 for 3. Say something stupid and
It
generic.
doesn't sound like WrestleMania.
Yeah,
To
exactly.
piggyback off of Andrew real quick, there were some dud matches, but I will say there was also some pretty fun ones. I thought Sonata versus Jake something was actually a pretty solid match.
Well,
Yeah, no, like I said, it was my least favorite pay-per-view. It was really in the like sweeping lack of buildup that led to Bound for Glory. So that's just why I picked it. And it sounds like I was lucky enough to not have to watch some horrible pay-per-views.
There was a compelling match in WrestleMania Night 2, which was John Cena versus his bald spot.
I mean,
No, we
which
all
is-
agree. The best match was that triple threat for the Intercontinental
Well, that's-
Championship match. That's
That was
the
the only
only
night one, though,
saving
wasn't it?
grace.
That's
No, that
what
was
makes,
night 2.
That's night 2.
That was Night 2. There's the
Okay, then that was the only
That's-
good thing.
Which is so funny because everyone thinks it's night 1 because it worked, and everyone assumes that night 2 was all bad things.
Hey, I also want to say I watched
Hey,
Omos
look at me.
lost,
I'm the
so
target audience.
Yeah.
What was that? What was that, Manny?
I gotta watch Omos lose, so that was
Yeah,
fun.
Oh God, Omos versus Brock was a choice.
Man. And Simon Miller was defending that match because saying, I liked it, and here's why. And I'm like, Simon, I love you. Hang on, Simon, hang on. That chop fest between the Sheamus, McIntyre, and Gunther was just 15 minutes of destruction.
We could hear the chops from up where we were at.
That's what you said, and that's horrifying to me. So yeah, how do you mess that up? We talked about this at length. Go back and listen if you really want to. We're still as heartbroken as we are now. Yeah, it was right. JBL called it.
Adolfo, I think you're on board with us, or was there something else?
Why do we need to linger longer on
don't.
this topic?
We
you
don't.
know,
Let's get off it then.
God,
Somebody wipe this turd and flush it down the
Well,
toilet.
mine wasn't. It
There you
wasn't
go.
even
There you
night two
go.
for me because
Yeah,
yeah,
Mikey,
night
what's next on the list?
two- well,
You
hold
said-
on, like
I
like,
can't hear
I-
it either.
Wipe this.
Can we hear? Can you guys hear me?
You're fine,
Yeah.
Minnie. You're fine.
You're
Go
good.
ahead.
You're good, Vinny. Go.
Night 2, night 2 was bad for everybody, but being there made it a lot more enjoyable. My least favorite was Fastlane this year because it was just the only good part of game from Fastlane was the post-match interviews.
That's
The origin of Yeet.
That's where, drunk Cody, drunk Jay. That was the only good part. I think that came from Fastlane. It was like the most unremarkable pay-per-view of the year, in my opinion.
I didn't remember it until you mentioned that, and then I remembered Fastlane.
Yeah, I didn't watch the pay-per-view, but I got the drunk reference.
Right,
Even I knew about that one.
When the only thing coming from that pay-per-view is the post-match interviews, that's how, like John Cena, Elliot, and I were both on the pay-per-view, and I don't remember them even having matches. That's how unremarkable that pay-per-view was.
That was Detroit, right? And that was all the cars and
yeah.
I will say the only match that was really good was Sami and KO versus Judgment Day in that Steel City Street fight. That was also the same night in which I yelled at my screen because the ending to Shinsuke versus Seth was not great.
No, that was Cody and that's when Cody and Jay won the belts.
Yeah.
Versus Judgment Day.
That also gave us Seth versus Shinsuke in the Last Man Standing, and that was not great.
It was like Shinsuke should have won, and I don't think that Cody and Jay should have won, but they did. But it allowed us to get Yeet.
Oh, and Yeet. Okay. WrestleMania Night 2 is not my worst pay-per-view of the year.
Oh.
I'm going to tell you why. I'm in the same boat as Minnie. Being there live wasn't as bad. Now, when I was looking at my list of the pay-per-views I did not like this year, my worst pay-per-views, I had to think about just the card as a whole and just the questionable booking decisions. And while Night 2 is really bad, and this is what's going to get me thrown off, even though I'm the boss, my worst pay-per-view of the year for me personally was Double or Nothing 2023. Here's why. I think this was a pay-per-view told in two parts. The first half of the pay-per-view was very underwhelming. Questionable decisions were made, and the way that they executed returns pissed me off so much, specifically women's returns, because we'll just get into it. And there was just a lot of things wrong with this, because on paper, I was excited to see this, and then when I watched it, I was so underwhelmed and I was so disappointed. Let me remind you what this card had. Orange Cassidy winning in that 21-man Blackjack Battle Royale for the Intercontinental Championship started off hot, and then we got the really horrible unsanctioned match between Adam Cole and Chris Jericho with Sabu as guest enforcer, which was really bad. Then FTR had to carry Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal in a tag team match in which Mark Briscoe was the guest referee. Remember that storyline? God awful as well. Wardlow versus Christian Cage was underwhelming in a ladder match, and I thought Christian died when he went through the table. So did Wardlow when his head bounced off the concrete. Then I'm going to make JBL upset. Because remember, this was the 3-minute match in which Toni Storm beat Jamie Hayter and became your new women's champion. Remember that whole debacle?
When Hayter was injured and they had to get the title offer. I remember.
So we had the beatdown with Ruby and Saraya helping Tony in a 3-minute match. Then we had an underwhelming House of Black versus the Acclaim match for the Trios Championship, and nobody was clicking in that match. Jade beat Taya for the TBS Championship. Remember Taya Valkyrie, you guys? Remember her on AEW television?
Yeah, I heard she was supposed to be in AEW, right? At some point, she was going to actually show up and like wrestle or something. I heard there was something about that.
And then we got like a 2-minute squash match because then this is when Chris Statlander returned and she defeated Jade and for the title. That whole thing was mad. The only saving grace was the 4 pillars match was actually entertaining. MJF, Sammy, Darby, and Jungle Boy. And then I was underwhelmed with the Anarchy in the Arena match between Blackpool Combat Club and then the Elite. That was very underwhelming. This was not my favorite pay-per-view of this year, only because there were so many lackluster matches. Execution of matches were horrible, and the returns and outcomes were very questionable at best. I almost put All In on this as my worst because there was also a lot of questionable stuff that happened, and the fight that happened at All In London also didn't help everything. But my worst pay-per-view is Double or Nothing. I was just so overwhelmed, and this was the most disappointed I have ever felt in any wrestling company this year than after watching Double or Nothing. It was it was rated as the worst pay-per-view of the 4 that we got over Memorial Day weekend.
All right, we're moving on to our WTF moments. I'm assuming these are the
hell
big,
yes.
surprises.
We're talking about the WTF moment. Like what the? This could be a good thing. It could be a bad thing. Mine's gonna be a bad thing. I'm just putting it out there right now. But the moment that made you go, why? JBL, what was your WTF moment?
I'm ceding my time again to my lovely co-host to my left because he and I agree on this wholeheartedly. Not because we're hetero life mates, but because in general we see eye to eye on a lot of this.
This shouldn't really come as a shock to anybody, but for me, the WTF moment of the year and probably the decade for me is going to be the death of Bray Wyatt. The amount that this man meant to me and meant to everybody. Absolutely. I loved him and I will continue to love him forever. I will never be okay from this personally. And I know I didn't meet him personally, but it was almost the avatar of self that I was seeing out there. Somebody who looked like me, who sounded and thought like me. Being able to be that successful in the land of the Titans where everyone had to have Ultimate Warrior physique and everything from that. And then he's just gone. I remember the moment I saw the news, I walking up my basement steps, saw the news on my phone, and I almost fell right back down. My wife had to catch me. I was so distraught and heartbroken immediately. I'm not okay. I know that. And I'm trying really hard right now to hold all the emotion back. I will never be okay with this, and I don't think anyone would be. It justifiably doesn't make sense. I'm still very much in the grieving process, even though it was months ago, and it's going to be a long time for me to come to terms with it. I'm still waiting to wake up and be like, oh, huh, it was a really tacky WWE move, just like when they killed Vince, and they've been doing that for years. And part of me knows, the 98% of me knows that's not going to happen. But there's still a 2% me goes, hey, maybe they haven't learned from their really tacky and bad moves in the past, and maybe he'll come back. So, not to bring everyone out on a down moment, but that's my WTF moment of the year. So, thank you. I need a moment now.
Jesse, I appreciate your vulnerability and your honesty with us here. Thank you, my friend. All right, we're gonna try to keep this going, but Andrew, what you got for WTF?
Well, I'll bring up some. I don't know that they're more pleasant WTF moments, but definitely different reactions. My biggest WTF moment was Hangman Adam Page drinking Swerve Strickland's blood in the Texas Death Match. I understand we're watching a match called the Texas Death Match. I understand that there was glass, like broken bottles, tables, ladders, a staple gun, all of that stuff was involved, and both people were bleeding all over the place. But the fact that everybody had that reaction to watching this person drink another person's blood out of their forehead like a drinking fountain was insane. And then doing the mist spray of it afterwards, so crazy. My honorable mention.
Hepatitis.
Yeah. Oh. My honorable mention of that TF moment for the year is, because it's just fitting for this, is NWA possibly losing their television right options because they decided to do a moment on their Sam Hain pay-per-view of having people do cocaine. Like, the booking sense that they did to have that spot happen on their pay-per-view, going into possibly getting a television deal, and then what a surprise. They blew that. Yeah, no pun intended. But yeah, so that was my honorable mention of WTF moment for the year. Good job, NWA.
What about that spot? Holy shit. Lord have mercy. NWA, man, is just, they're out here wild. I don't know, man. All right, Adolfo, your WTF moment of the year.
So Andrew actually touched on my WTF moment, and it wasn't just Hangman Adam Page drinking of the blood and becoming vampire, blah, blah, blah. It was the whole Hangman Adam Page Strickland match. Yeah, it stopped me. And when I saw the blood drink, and I was like, what the fuck? And then as the match progressed, what? And I'm used to Extreme Rule matches. This one definitely took the cake.
That was a rough match to watch, especially I was there live and the arena was so quiet for a lot of they're like, oh my God, what do we cheer? Do we yell? There was a lot. Professor, what you got for your WTF moment? Please let it be what I think it is.
Maybe I'm gonna go quick. I can't believe I'm invoking this match again because I love this sort of thing, and it was awful. I'm gonna say it. That Texas Chainsaw Massacre match with the Texas Chainsaw belt thing that Jeff Jarrett and Hardy pretending they're in a horror movie in a stadium, which makes no sense. So they're walking into the rafters, talking to each other, picking up weapons, and then missing. And then other people coming this way, and the camera's going down and up, and the lights are coming. So they obviously thought this through, and the shadows are covering the camera. The cameraman trips twice. If you watch it, it's all messed up. Yeah, I rewatched the thing, and it's strange. And then Leatherface shows up for no reason. And then what's her name is there? She's trying to get away, but she gets in the way, and Leatherface doesn't kill her. Turns around and goes the other way, but Leatherface doesn't do anything, and there's smoke under the match. I've been in a lot of bad horror movies. You could check me out on IMDb. I've done a lot of stupid things. I've never seen anything so not well put together ever. And I've directed high school shows, and I've ruined plays by not knowing my line. I've never seen anything so half-assed and weird as that for a sponsor. It's one of the worst sponsored matches I've ever seen. And what breaks my heart is that title belt actually looked cool to me. I would wear that because I'm strange. What the fuck? So mine is not as nearly as heartfelt as it should be, and it's not nearly as gross as it could be. But it's something that the whole time just made me go, that represents everything that's wrong with professional wrestling right now.
And that's why we're getting Shotzi on the podcast, right?
Don't tempt me. Why is everything hurt?
Listen, I will call it a day, and I will say that we have hit peak if we get Shotzi to come on and we get to talk to her. Honestly, interview her.
She's not going to remember me, but I'm going to try.
We don't care.
You and I were in a horror movie in the suburbs, and you were miserable, but you were great. And I watched you tackle a 19-year-old man and make out with him, and it was hysterical. Hi, my name's John Crosswade. I'm on this podcast.
I love to see it. All right, Minnie, your WTF moment of the year.
He watched a pay-per-view.
I watched a lot more than I think. I might get some hate for this because it's also recency bias, and you know what? I don't care. I enjoyed it when I was younger. CM Punk coming back to WWE. It was reading Twitter and everything about it. It was very implied that he was not coming. A lot of people that we normally trust for our sources that are normally 9 out of 10 times are super reliable or saying he wasn't coming back. There's no chance he's not coming back. He doesn't want to wrestle for WWE. Nothing. And then he comes back, and it was just like, wait a second. You said this wasn't happening. I personally never expected to see him come back in a WWE ring, especially after how he exited, and then a little bit with his drama, how he left AEW. I never expected him to see WWE, and for him to come back at the end of a pay-per-view we thought was going to end, and then he just shows up out of nowhere. I thought that was going to be. That's not what the consensus, what WWF moment was. That's definitely the unfortunate death of Bray Wyatt, but that was already talked about, so I'm gonna say CM Punk coming back.
Oh my goodness. Now I'm looking at mine, and I was just like, my WTF moment is I already said that Double or Nothing made me the most disappointed in a wrestling community than I ever felt in 2023. My WTF moment never left me more angry as a fan, especially. I'm just going to put it out there. My WTF moment was the entirety of the Raw after WrestleMania this year. And here, let me tell you why it's my WTF moment. Never have I seen a show go so off the rails, like more so than normal for WWE. Like the whole entire night was just paced awfully. Everything was weird. And then we come to find the reports that Vince literally ripped up the script and made changes literally like 5 seconds before the show went on. So like Seth Rollins was upset with what happened. The first hour was commercial free, and we did not get a singular wrestling match. It was just a lot of talking. It was a big old waste of my time. And then this is where the eventual, like, they teased Roman and Solo versus Cody, and Brock was going to be the main event for the night. And then it didn't happen because then Brock beat the daylights out of Cody for no reason to set up this like interim feud. And I think what made it worse was the fact that we were watching this at my house. Me and Minnie were watching this at my house live. And we're like, what? like we should have a good time. I'm interested to see what the fallout was because we are already just exhausted because the outcome of Cody losing to Roman was just it took the wind out of our sails. And then for us to waste 3 hours, and I never will get those 3 hours of my life back because that was the worst episode of wrestling television I have ever seen. And nothing will change my mind. Even the crappy stuff that AEW has been doing pales into comparison with how much of my time, the audience's time, I'm Maxine Waters. I want to reclaim my time because that was not it for me. Lord have mercy. This is the Raw After Mania is by far the worst episode of wrestling I have ever seen this year. And that's saying something because I've watched a lot of crap this year. But my God, I have never been so mad at a wrestling show for wasting my time and for wasting my intelligence and treating me like I was stupid. Vince McMahon can eat a dick. And that's all I have to say on that matter. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Not bad. Well done. All right. Fair enough.
Lord have mercy.
So we made it. We did it.
We
did it.
We did it.
Hey!
There we are. Because honestly, we covered everything about 2023, and I feel like we can go into later once we hit January and get through the last bit of the year. We can talk about in our next podcast what our hopes are for that year as we go into it. Because
agreed.
I think
this year is really still the wrap ups and everything else. But gentlemen, every one of you, I love all these things. I have written down a lot of the matches you were talking about, including the ones I shouldn't watch and should never keep there. And I really want to just say thank you all for being a part of this. I know I'm speaking for Mikey on this a bit because Mikey and I, when we started this, before we got the relaunch, it was just two nerds who didn't know each other sitting in a basement talking about this type of stuff and didn't think we'd find any tribe around the world that would ever do this, including everyone online here. And so we're very thankful that Mikey decided to say, no, we're not going to do all this ourselves. And then he continues to do it and brought all of us in on this as well. But I feel like we've run the gamut. The only thing we didn't touch a lot of was NGPW. We've run the gamut on all these great things. You all are amazing. Thank you for being here with us. Thank you for allowing your time for what you do with this, because Mikey and I, when we were there at the beginning, we're like, no one else would want to listen to us talk about this stuff. We're two bisexual guys that just wants to talk about wrestling and hang out. And I don't know now, almost 2 years into this, Mikey, how we got so damn lucky, because this group is ridiculous.
I ask this question on occasion ever so often because I remember when me and you did this, and then just everything, life got busy, all that kind of stuff, and we're just like, let's just shelve this for now and see what happens. And I remember just sitting there, I was just like, you know what? I'm just talking about wrestling with some folks, and let's see where we can go from here. So, of course, you saying yes is really what started all this because I already had set a plan into motion of wanting to bring this back. But the first thing I did was I wanted your blessing and your permission to see if you would be okay if we relaunched it, because this was the Bi-Conics name and its origin story. Yes, me and John over here did this, but this was all his idea. And so I didn't want to continue on with it if he didn't want me to, because this is his origin, his idea, his baby. And it just so happened he wanted to be along for the ride. And then we picked up the OG crew. And then over the summer, we picked up the 4 new faces that we have here: Jesse, Andrew, Will, and then Luis. Lord, you guys all listen. I mentioned this to my guys all the time, but this has become something that I love doing. You guys have become my family outside of wrestling. Like, it's just a joy to do this. And I'm going to be honest, I didn't know where this was going to take us, but 6 months later, we hit a big milestone with getting over 100 subscribers on YouTube, constantly putting in the work, having a good time through the highs and the lows. Yeah, this is one of these things that has brought me so much joy in 2023, and I look forward to see how much more we can have come 2024. We sign off.
Mikey, take us home.
So thank you for
Can I
tuning in.
interject one thing?
Yeah, go for it.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I thought I was ready to talk about that. Clearly I wasn't, and I don't want to get too emotional, but I just want to thank everybody here for humoring me and allowing my wife to not have me talk to her about wrestling the entire time because they're not really interested. I don't know why, but
I say this.
they find it very interesting that people who don't wear pants fight over a belt. That's a funny anachronism from here. But thank you all. Thank you for allowing me to join into this because this is, it feels like a safe place for me to be who I actually am.
Yeah, it's been a great excuse to get back into and watch wrestling, but in reality, it's made watching wrestling more entertaining because I know most weeks I'm going to get to talk to people who enjoy it as well. And even in the weeks or the shows that I don't review, I will often go and watch our episodes or listen to them just because getting to hear everyone else's input and ideas and thoughts about what we're all watching, it adds that much more to it. And so building that community has been pretty cool. So thanks for all having me.
Y'all are fucking crazy, but I love all y'all except for maybe JVL. I'm still debating on JVL.
On that lovely little note,
You mini.
For those of you that tuned in all the way through, thank you so much for tuning into our end of the year episode for the Bi-Conics Wrestling Podcast. Who knows what we're going to talk about next time we get together for a podcast episode, but one thing is for certain. I am so excited to continue this journey with my 8 lovable losers, as I've called them, because they are my nerds. They are my tribe. I love them so much, and I am thankful for them. And we are thankful for you for following us on the small little 6-month journey that has taken us to where we are now. So if you enjoyed this, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel to see this as well as whatever else we've got going on, because we are trying to cover a plethora of everything, and everyone's passion and desire shines through in every single one. You can also follow us all over the social medias at bcwrestlepod, where you can get up-to-date notifications on when our reviews and videos go live, as well as the out-of-context clips where we start arguments in the comments, because now we're getting hate comments, you guys. We made it. Like, it is a beautiful thing. But of course, make sure to subscribe to the Bi-Conics Wrestling Podcast, where you can listen to this episode as well as all the future episodes that we're going to be doing heading into 2024. And with that being said, thank you so much for joining us in this year for 2023. And remember, take care of yourself, love one another, and as always, stay Bi-Conic, you beautiful bastards. But until the next review or the podcast episode, take care of yourself, enjoy your holidays, and ta-ta for now.